Tonight, our main speaker is Paulie. Please help me to welcome Paulie.
Boy, you guys changed the format. I thought I had like 10 or 15 more minutes to sit over there and worry about what I was going to say. I'm Paulie, and I'm an alcoholic. Glad to be here tonight. Glad to be sober. My sobriety date is June 9th of 2002. So a little over a month ago, I picked up 18 years. That's a good thing and a bad thing. Now I have to be an adult in sobriety, and it's not working that well. But so I was kind of thinking, 2020's been a little bit of a bitch so far. But, if you think about it, so what do they tell us to do? So isolate, don't talk to anybody, figure it out yourself. Us as alcoholics, we've been training for this all our lives. I mean, that's kind of what we do, it comes second nature. But, it is what it is, and I'm glad to be in the meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. So what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. So I was born and raised in upstate New York, a little town called North Tonawanda, just outside of Buffalo, New York. Started drinking at a pretty early age. I don't know if there's anybody here from back east. Anybody familiar with Genesee Cream Ale? Oof. That's what I started drinking, and I'll tell you this, you'd think that would be enough to stop you from drinking. Jenny Cream Ale, you could drink it with a fork. It's like cream soda with alcohol. But anyhow, I started at a very young age. I come from a long line of drinkers. Not my place to say if they're alcoholic or not, but my cousin and I used to steal Jenny Cream, big green can, gold writing. I can still see it in my head. But we used to steal beers from my aunt. I like to say I was a closet drinker in the beginning because that's where we used to hide to drink. But I'll tell you, looking back, even then, I was a counter. I don't know if there's any other counters in the room or if you know what I mean by that, but we would steal 4 beers, and I'd be like, if I drink fast, I can have 3, he can have 1. That kind of thing. And that kind of drinking just progressed for me. I'm not the guy that, my parents didn't love me enough or life just was horrible. That's why I drank. I just really liked to get drunk right from the beginning. And so I was probably, 14 or 15 when I really started to actively pursue my drinking career, I guess. But the thing about alcoholism is, in the beginning it was, drinking was all right. It was a good thing. When I wanted to get drunk and I could find a way to get drunk, it was all good, But as time goes on, if you drink like I drank, you find yourself getting drunk when you don't want to get drunk, and that's when it started to be a problem. But anyhow, I have my life pretty planned out, as do most of us alcoholics. I come from a long line of military family, so I was going to go in the Navy. I was going to stay in the Navy for 20 years. I was going to retire at 58 or whatever, and I was going to be set. So the start of that plan worked out. I joined the Navy. I missed 20 years by 18 years and 11 months because they threw me out after 13 months. They said I had a drinking problem. I don't know if any of you know anything about the military, but you have to drink a lot for the Navy to be like, damn, son, you drink too much, But so I got thrown out of the Navy, and of course at that time that was their fault, not mine. They were just picking on me. So after the Navy, I went back home, and through circumstances that I didn't plan or anything like that, I ended up with a job doing geosynthetic work, which is construction, but it's like liners for landfills, drainage systems, things like that. So it was a job where we traveled all around the country. I was on the road like 10 months out of the year. I did that for 7 years. It was the perfect job for an alcoholic because you never stayed anywhere long enough to have any consequences. You know, we would roll into town, we would pick out a bar that we wanted to be at, and then we would find a hotel near that. We would work all day, we would drink all night. After like 2 or 3 months, when the heat starts kind of getting hot, you know, and people are figuring out who you really are, you pack all your shit and move to the next place and just start over. You know, it was perfect. So I did that for 7 years, and then after 7 years, they asked me to not come back. Again, their fault, not mine, because I couldn't figure out why they didn't want me back. But so now I'm 27. I have no idea how to be a grown-up because I just you know, that 7 years worth of traveling, I mean, I didn't have to pay rent. I didn't have to pay a gas bill. I didn't have to pay a phone bill. I didn't, you know, they just, basically, I worked and drank and they paid me, you know. So I found myself back in upstate New York and didn't really know what I was going to do. So I had a friend that moved to Prescott, my best friend from high school. Him and I stayed in touch over the years, and he says, why don't you come check out Prescott? So Christmas Eve of 1997, I got on a plane and I came to Prescott. So I stayed with that guy, my best friend through high school, and I lived with him for about 2 years. And I came home from work one day, and there was a note on the door that said, you can't live here anymore. And I thought, God, the audacity of that guy. It's ridiculous when I think about it, you know, but in my alcoholic mind, you know, I'm like, I've known this guy since 8th grade. And he's not even man enough to tell me face to face, you know. But I, you know, I look back and I've since made amends to that guy, and we're still friends to this day. But you know, I look back, how hard must that have been for him, you know? But at the time, I'm like, how dare he, you know? And I mean, it's ridiculous. Again, his fault, not mine, still, you know. But when I think back about that, it's like, how would that conversation have went, you know? Hey, bro, you know, I've been knowing you since 8th grade. I love you, but you know, the 5th time you pissed on my couch, I just kind of figured you shouldn't really be around my wife and my kids anymore, you know? But at the time, I'm filled with this indignant anger, you know, how dare he? So anyhow, I kicked around a little longer, and it's a little rough when you have that 7 years of no repercussions, you know, when I was traveling, and then you land somewhere and you got nowhere else to go, you know what I mean? My actions started to catch up to me. And so I kicked around for a little while, and then I guess it was about 1999. They say you can't be struck sober, but I was. Unfortunately, it was by a minivan. I got put out of a cab on the side of the road right across from the VA hospital, or so they tell me. I don't remember this. And I got hit by a van. Now, do the math. 99, I got hit by a van. 02 is my sobriety date. So some of us learn a little slower than others. But so they flew me to Phoenix. I crushed my pelvis. I got 2 plates and 15 screws in this arm. I had like 40 stitches in my head, or 30 stitches or whatever. And you know, I'll never forget waking up in the hospital. Again, and all of this is in retrospect, you know, but I woke up in the hospital, and when I realized that it was real, my first thought was, man, one finally got me. Think about that, you know. My first thought wasn't, holy cow, I got hit by a van, that's crazy. My first thought was, Well, if you drink if you blackout drink like I do every night and you walk home, sooner or later you're going to get hit by something, and I was okay with that. But yeah, it's crazy. But I remember being in that hospital and the AA people, as I called them at that time, the nurse came in and there was this lady very well dressed with some pamphlets. And they sat down and they asked me, about my drinking and if I thought I had a problem drinking. And I'm thinking, I just got hit by a van. Isn't there more important stuff we need to talk about here? And the nurse looked at me and she said, in no way do we condone you being as intoxicated as you were. But the alcohol probably saved your life. Perfect. My brain then forgot all about all the bad stuff. Check it out. The booze saved my life. So they proceeded to tell me they did a blood alcohol test on me when I got to Phoenix. So however long after the accident that was. And my blood alcohol content was 5.2. Yeah. Well, yeah. But the booze saved my life. So, again, if you do the math, that was 99, and I got sober in '02. So, like any good drunk, I had a great reason to drink for those next few years, Hey, Paulie, don't you think you're drinking a little too much? You're damn right I am. I got hit by a van. Did you ever get hit by a van? Maybe you should buy me a drink. My arm hurts. And it's all ludicrous now, But that right there was the beginning of the end for me as far as my drinking goes, And I remember everybody would say to me, and this is how I would hear them then, is, well, you didn't die because God has a plan for you. And my response was always, well, he could have pulled me out of the way and whispered in my ear what the hell it is he wanted me to do. But in retrospect, God pushed me in front of that van. I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. The conversation went something like this. Hey, St. Peter, there goes Paulie again. Watch this. But, but that was the beginning for me. And again, I drank for a few years in between there. And the sad part about alcoholism is I started losing shit faster than I could lower my standards. And that doesn't make sense. I was always able to find somebody that was worse than me or, at least I'm not that guy, that kind of stuff. And then I started looking around, man, and I was that guy, So the final icing on the cake, if you will, I cheated on my girlfriend because I don't know why, just because that's what you do, I guess. And she threw me out of the house for like 3 days, and somehow I connived my way back in. And I always knew where you guys were. My dad, he didn't really get sober. He died drunk, but he got dry for a lot of years because he was forced to by work. But so I always knew of AA, and at the end of my drinking, I wasn't ready to really stop drinking yet, but enough people were giving me enough crap that I was kind of playing the AA card, but not really. I'd be sitting in a bar, drunk off my butt, and I'd be like, I'm going to get sober. There's nothing worse than a drunk guy talking about being sober, but that was my last, I don't know, what's the word? My last stall tactic, if you will. So anyways, she threw me out of the house for 3 days. I connived my way back in because we were going to talk. And she said, you need to go to treatment. You need to go, blah, blah, you this and that. And I said, you know what, I'm going to stop drinking. She says, well, you need to go and you need to call. And I said, you know what, let me just try it. I'm going to go to AA. I'm going to see what happens. If that doesn't work, then I will do whatever you want me to do. But that's so. So then she's crying and I'm fake crying because that's what you do. And and I had this thought, and I didn't really know anything about the whole program of AA. I just kind of knew you guys were this crazy cult that didn't drink. And looking back now, it was probably the best thing that could have happened for my future sobriety. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. So she's crying, I'm fake crying, blah, 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 and then all of a sudden it hits me. Man, if tomorrow I'm never going to drink again, I am not near drunk enough tonight. This can't be it. So I know it sounds silly, but they say, if you're not done, you're not done. And I'm pretty sure what I did that night was, after we hugged it out, I looked at her and I said, all right, well, I got to go. She said, where are you going? And I said, I got to go finish. I didn't know anything about any of this, but I think that was God working in my life that night already. Not that he hadn't, when he saved me from getting hit by a van and all that coincidence, all that was. But looking back in retrospect, I haven't, through the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and you people, I haven't found it necessary to take a drink for 18 years. But I can almost guarantee that if I hadn't acted on that thought that night, I would have drank again. I think. I mean, that's what I think. But so anyways, I tell her I'm going to go finish, and then she threw something at me and called me a son of a bitch, and because she didn't believe me. But so I went out that night, and I got as drunk as I've ever been without getting hit by a van. And the next day, I said, okay, this is it. And I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous at the old Alano Club on 6th Street. And I walked in there, and I thought, oh, God. But right off the bat, I was already hatching my plan, because that's what we do. We just connive and figure stuff out, And I figured, raise your hand if this was your sobriety plan. I'm going to just hang out long enough for all the heat to be off, for everyone to just leave me alone, and then I'm going to get back on with the rest of my life, And the thing about AA, man, is there's only one thing that you have to do absolutely correct in AA, and that's not drink. If you don't drink, you got a shot at this thing. Everything else can be going to hell, but as long as you don't drink, eventually this program will work you if you allow it to, So I started going to the meetings, and, I was going to just hang out I always say you couldn't find anybody more willing than me when I got here, because I was willing to dive right in and get that 5 or 6 weeks out of the way until I could go back out when all the heat was off, And they say don't leave before the miracle happens. And my miracle happened on a Thursday night at a men's stag meeting. It was at the Adult Center over behind True Value over there. And I'm sitting in this meeting. I'm like 8 or 9 days sober. And the topic of the meeting is the promises. So, yeah, you've been there, right? So it's going around the room, and everybody is talking about how wonderful their lives have gotten. And I'm sitting there, and I'm sick as a dog, and I don't know what the hell's going on. And I remember thinking to myself, either these people are completely full of shit, or they could not have possibly been this bad. The way I felt that night, just pure physical sickness. Like I wasn't even physically sober enough for my mind to start messing with me. That came a little later, and I just thought, you can't get there from here. So I looked at the clock, and it was 20 to 8, and that meeting was over at 8 o'clock. And I thought to myself, at 8 o'clock, I'm going to the bar. That's it, And here's the funny part. I couldn't just get up and leave that meeting early because all of those people that I didn't know or didn't care about may have thought poorly of me. I couldn't my ego wouldn't let me just get up and leave. So 20 to 8, and I made up my mind. I'm going to the bar. And then the next thought I had was, to hell with the promises. What do I get right now? What's this all about? And no sooner did I have that thought. And if you don't believe in divine intervention, that's your prerogative, and that's okay. That's okay. But I'll tell you what, man, no sooner, it was a ticket meeting, and no sooner did I have that thought that a guy's ticket got called way across this big long table from me. And he said, "I'm Bill, and I'm an alcoholic." And if you're new out there, you're probably thinking, to hell with the promises, what do I get right now? Right? I mean, what are the chances? And I'll tell you, what that guy said. He said, now remember, I'm 20 minutes from a drink, and he said, "I'll tell you what you get right now. You get 2 guarantees." He said, guarantee number 1, think about this, if you don't drink, you'll never get drunk again. I had no idea. I'm sitting there trying to wrap my brain around how am I possibly going to stay sober, and and he says, if you don't drink, you'll never get drunk. It sounds silly, but it was like a light bulb moment. I'm like, that makes a little sense. And he said, guarantee number 2, if you don't drink long enough, your life will get better than it is right now. And I thought, And he said, I'm not saying that everything's going to be roses and you're going to tap dance down the road whistling zippity-doo-dah for the rest of your life. He said, but I promise you, if you don't drink, you won't get drunk. If you don't get drunk long enough, your life will get better than it is at this moment right now. And I thought, Now remember, I'm 20 minutes from a drink. I already made up my mind. And I remember looking across the table at that guy, and I thought to myself, okay, old man, I'm going to give it 6 months. And if my life doesn't get better, I'm kicking your ass. That's the thought I had, But again, in retrospect, here's what God gave me that night. He gave me something tangible, touchable, and real that I could hang it all on. You know what I mean? I was sitting there in a quandary of, how am I going to stay sober? I couldn't wrap my brain around nothing. And then God gave me that guy to hang it on. And that's what I did. I'm going to stay sober for 6 months because that guy said. My life's going to get better because that guy said. And here I am 18 years later. I was 20 minutes from a drink. As God is my witness, I was done. I could already taste it. I already knew who was going to be in the bar, where they were going to be sitting, because it was only 8 or 9 days since I'd been there. But, the funny thing about it is that guy has since passed, and I go to a Monday night meeting, and on my birthday, every year for 15 years, I shared that story on how he saved my life. And every year for 14 years, he said nothing about it. On the 15th year, he said, Paulie, I wish I could remember that night, because I could sit here and pontificate about how I saved your life. He said, I don't even remember uttering those words. So, it just goes to show you, the life you save might be your own, but more importantly, it might be somebody else's. And he had no idea the effect that those words had on me that night. And he let me believe for 14 years that he knew he saved my life. And on the 15th, he's like, you got lucky. But, so, that was the miracle for me, was that night, And as I said before, the only thing that you have to do with 100% perfection is not drink. If your head hits the pillow and you have not taken a drink today, you are 100% successful in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, there's some other stuff that you have to do if you want to be, I don't know, happy or, productive member of society. That's where the steps and all that kind of stuff comes in. But I have never in 18 years seen anybody drunk work a good program. So you got to kind of take care of the booze part first, and then you can kind of work on the other stuff, And that's the beauty of this program, man, is it's one drunk helping another. My primary purpose is to stay sober and to do whatever it takes for me to stay sober. Lucky for me, what that takes is being involved with other alcoholics. I can guarantee you this, there's one person that will feel better, at least one person that will feel better when they leave this meeting, and that's me. And if you guys get something out of my talk tonight, that's just a bonus. I'm happy to share with anybody that wants to be shared with. But I'm sorry, but it's all about me. That's just the way my sobriety has to be, But the beauty of this program, like I said, you got to give it away to keep it. I get more out of helping another alcoholic than that alcoholic will ever get. And I just thought of something. The other day, my daughter-in-law, we were talking about something, and something about a guy I used to sponsor or something, and she said, geez, you haven't had real good luck with sponsorship over the years, have you? I said, well, I sponsored, 40, 50 guys over the years, and so far one of us has stayed sober every time. I'm okay, But yeah, so, I digress. So I got my life saved. I'm sorry, my brain's still a little scrambled. There are big chunks of my life that I don't even remember. I'm sure some of you can relate, right? But so that guy saved my life, and so I started going to meetings because I decided I was going to give this a shot because that guy said. And I was at a meeting one night, and they said, you need to get a sponsor. I said, okay, well, I guess if that guy said I have to do this stuff, so if I want to get that stuff, then I guess I have to do what they tell me to do. And they said, the way you find a sponsor is find somebody that has what you want. So after that meeting, again, we're probably 3 weeks into sobriety now, we're standing outside, and there was a guy that had talked in the meeting, and he lights up a cigarette. I thought, boy, I could go for a smoke. I guess that guy's got what I want. So I walked up to him, I asked him for a cigarette, and I asked him to be my temporary sponsor. And he said, are you looking to stay temporarily sober? So he gave me a smoke, and he said, I'll be your sponsor, and we'll see how this works out. And I said, okay. He said, you have to work the steps. I said, yeah, I heard something about that. There's like 12 of them or whatever. He said, well, we're going to start right now. I'm thinking, man, I just wanted to smoke. Dude, leave me alone. And he says, okay, step one. We can admit that you're powerless over alcohol because you're here tonight. Can we agree on that? I said, yeah. He said, okay, step two. You believe that there's something that can help you because you're here. Can we agree on that? I thought, yeah. He says, okay, step three. We can agree that you made a decision to turn your will or your lives over to the care of something that can help you because you're powerless, because you're here. You seeing a pattern? He was tricking me. I didn't even know. He said, but because you're here. And I'm thinking, oh, this is easy. I said, yeah, I agree. He says, okay, let's talk about step 4. And I'll tell you, I have since worked the steps several times more thoroughly. But again, God put in my life that night exactly what I needed. This guy took me through the first 3 steps in 5 minutes and said, all right, let's get into 4. So the way he had me do step 4, he said, I need you to write down, what are you scared of and why? Who are you mad at and why? And the 6 things that embarrass you, that when you're laying in bed in the deep dark night all by yourself, the stuff that gives you that sick feeling in the pit of your stomach, I want to know about that stuff. And I said, okay, I'm on it. So I started thinking. And I don't know if anybody else has this thinking problem like I have, you know. But I thought that there had to be some deep-seated something that made me turn out the way I did, you know. I wasn't avoiding the 4th step. I honestly wasn't, but I just thought that I had to uncover some aha something, you know. So after, you know, he didn't waste any time. After about, you know, another 2 or 3 weeks when I didn't have anything written down, he says, hey, what the hell's going on? And I told him, I said, Marty, honestly, I said, I'm trying to figure it out. He says, well, that's your first problem. You know, I said, but there's got to be something, because I thought that's what the 4th step was all about. I had to search and find what, you know. So he said, I'll tell you what. We will just assume that when you were a very small child, your mother put you on the toilet backwards. And that screwed you up for the rest of your life. Now, let's talk about all the screwed up things you did. And I was like, oh. So then I got after it. Because, you know, I was only going to give it 6 months. So I had to hurry if anything was going to work, you know. So I remember writing out all this stuff on my 4th step. I had pages and pages and pages, right? So he picks me up. I hop in his truck, and I got all my stuff, you know. He says, is that it? I said, yep. You know, I was proud, you know. And he goes like this. Okay, let's talk about all the stuff you thought about writing down but didn't. I'm like, damn it. So all that stuff that I wrote down, he didn't even look at, because he knew better. And we talked about all that stuff that I wasn't going to tell anybody, that I wasn't going to share with anybody. And I don't know why it was him that I was able to share all that with, but I know I was. And again, here's another beauty of this program. So I did my 5th step with him. I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And time goes on. I'm about 6 months sober. 6 months. That was the magic part. I realized that my life had been getting better, so I was going to give it another 6 months, because you don't want to jump right into anything. And that guy called me, and he said, hey, I need to come clean with you. I said, okay. He said, I've been eating pills. And my first thought was, son of a bitch, now I have to start all over. You know, here I am still sober, and this guy, but I'll tell you this, man, I've been sober 18 years now. He's still in the program. I think he just picked up 7 months. But that's okay, man, because he told me that he was high when I did my 4th step, or my 5th step. And I thought, well, now I'm going to have to do that over. And then I thought, well, no, I don't, because that wasn't about him. That was about me. So, you know, and that's how this program changes you too, because if I got that same phone call today, my reaction would be a lot different if somebody was letting me know that they were struggling, you know. But back then it was just all about, how dare him? How dare him? But, so yeah, that was the beginning. I guess at least I got sober before quarter to 8. Sometimes I'm not even sober yet. So moving forward, this is where it gets into kind of the cheesy part, that if you're new out there, you're going to call bullshit on this right now, but I promise you, I was in the same place thinking the same thing. But if I'd have made a list, man, back then when I got sober, of what I wanted my life to look like now and how I would categorize success and what I'm doing and how I am, I would have sold myself so short, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So, now, so 18 years ago, I'm puking blood and wet in the bed. My family doesn't want to talk to me. My buddy puts a note on the door. I'm just getting picked on by society, is what I thought back then. Fast forward now. I work at a multi-million-dollar auto dealership. They give me keys to the place. Sometimes they leave me there by myself. Right? And I deal with hundreds and thousands of dollars of other people's money. And they're okay with that. So this just reminded me of something. I'm sorry, I'm jumping back. So speaking of other people's money, so I used to work at Nick's Feed Your Face. I don't know if anybody knows that. It's a pretty famous sub shop. It's been in town forever. And I came into a little money. This is when I was still drinking. I came into a little money, and I put it in the bank because I wasn't going to touch it. But then that night, after the banks were closed and I'm at the bar, I thought, well, man, I need to get some more money. I said, oh, I know what I'll do. So I had a key to Nick's, and I knew where the money was in the back. So I wrote him a check for $500. Go big or go home, right? And I took $500 out of the cash bag, and I put a check in there. So I get to work the next day, and he's a little upset. And I honestly can't figure out why. And the more he's trying to convey to me that what I did was idiotic, the more adamant I am. Because in my mind, I'm like, dude, I wrote you a check, and it's good. Like, do you know how many bad checks I've written? Like, you're lucky that I would just go to the bank, and that guy got so mad at me that he had to walk away. And I wasn't trying to be combative. I just could not understand why he was upset. Basically, I stole $500 and threw a piece of paper in the cash bag. Looking back now, But again, I've made amends with that guy too, and he's still my friend today. And and that's the beauty of this program, that you can do that. So what it's like now, I said I got a job. I make enough money to keep the wolves away from the door every month. I did learn some things in sobriety too, and some of you may not know this yet, but you can pay the gas bill every month when it's like $35. You don't have to wait till you get that disconnect notice and it's like $300. Yeah, you can just go along monthly and pay all that stuff. I learned that in sobriety. That's how I used to pay my bills. Whichever one came pink, that was the one you had to pay now, because that meant they were going to shut something off. But I make enough money where I'm okay. I have a wife that loves me. I have 3 stepchildren. I don't love them any less, just hers by birth, mine by choice. And then, 4 years ago, at 46 years of age, God decided that I was mature enough to have a child of my own. So I turned 50 in June. My youngest son turned 4 in March. That's about the noise I made when she told me we were pregnant. But you know, life today is better than I could have ever imagined. And that doesn't mean that it's perfect. That doesn't mean that I don't go through stuff, you know. But, you know, 6 months at a time, like that old boy told me, you know, my life has gotten better and better and better. And you still have to deal with stuff, you know. Just because I'm sober doesn't mean that every day is perfect. You know, but because I'm sober, I have a say in how every day is, you know. When I was drinking, that's all I could do was react. You know, they were picking on me. It's his fault, it's her fault, it's their fault, you know. And now I am an active participant in my life. You know, there's a difference. The things that I do directly correlate to the way things work out most of the time, you know. And you know, along that note, I know I don't look like it, but I'm a little bit of a hippie. I used to have hair and everything. But, you know, there's a Bob Dylan song, and there's a lyric in that song. And that lyric says, "Keep it in your mind and not forget that it is not he or she or them or it that you belong to." Think about that. That was my whole life. If he would just, if she would just, if they would just, then I could be. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he or she or them or it, whatever you're doing, you know. And, you know, I have a relationship with my two brothers again. So get this, my brother lived in Phoenix for 5 years while I was here in Prescott. I didn't see him one time. We get together twice a year now. 5 years in Phoenix. And you know, back then I'm like, he just can't find the time to come in. But he didn't want anything to do with me, you know. And, you know, life is okay today. It's okay. You know, and I know I was talking to Kirk earlier, I know I'm starting to get a little more well in sobriety, because there was a time if someone would have asked me to speak in a meeting, I'd have been freaked out every day until that meeting came. What am I going to say? How am I going to say? Who am I going to impress? What am I going to wear? What am I going to, blah, blah, blah. So this morning I woke up and I said, oh, that's right, I got to speak at that meeting tonight. And then I started going on with my day, and I got a text, and it said, see you at Rarlington. I said, oh, yeah, that's right. Got to speak at that meeting tonight. And then 6 o'clock this evening, my wife goes, honey, 6 o'clock. I go, I know, what's for dinner? She goes, don't you have a meeting at like 7? I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right. I got to go speak at that meeting. You know, but that's how I know that I'm getting a little more well. Because quite honestly, I don't care what you think about me. I don't care what you do for you. I had to learn a long time ago that as a rule, people in this world are doing the best they can. And as a rule, that will never be good enough for this alcoholic. You know, I'm that guy. But I have to remember that people are doing things for themselves, not to me. I don't have to be a victim anymore. You know, I am directly responsible for my life. And if 1 hour of my life can help anybody else's life, that's awesome. But as I said earlier, I know I'll leave here tonight feeling better. Haven't been able to share my story with you guys. So that's all I got. I thank you all.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That was a great share. This has been a regular meeting of the Rarely Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. You are cordially invited to join us again next week. Please bring a friend. There are approximately 100 meetings of AA each week in the Prescott area. We advise you attend as many as possible, and we hope you will join us again soon. After a prayer, will people who volunteer to do that stuff, and your court cards are in the back. This format, it needs to be changed. Okay, I'm sorry. We can all circle up and pray with Paulie's choice of prayer.